Hey everybody, it's Ruby as always, and welcome to episode 3 of our GTA 5 FiveM C# coding adventure, I think is what I called it last episode. It's probably pretty fitting for what's going on. But anyways, last episode we were able to get the coroner spawned and he drives to our location. And that's basically it, not too much. So this episode we're going to be taking care of a lot of the logic around what happens after he gets to our location. So anyways, enough blabbing. Let's go ahead and start coding because there's going to be a lot of it this episode. So anyways, let's go ahead and create a new public static void of loop. And within this function is going to be all of our different kind of logic, but we're actually not going to call this from within Coroner. We're actually going to make a tick handler in main and go ahead and handle all of that in there. So if we do tick on tick, and what we're going to do is actually create this event for us. So onTick is going to be our new method in here. So this can just be a private async task of on tick. So what this will do is we'll go ahead and do the import for this. There we go. So within here, go ahead and get the right indentation. So in here, we want to actually handle a tick event. So within FiveM, there is what is called a tick. So it's not like a second, and it's not even technically a millisecond. It's just how many times the thread can execute in the game, while in either the client or the server side. So what I have found that works pretty well for this stuff is about every 1,000 ticks is about a second, give or take. It's not absolutely a second. It's sometimes less, it's sometimes more. It kind of depends, but around 1,000 ticks is about every second, and I found that it works pretty well for this. If any of you guys have more experience with that kind of stuff, I'd definitely be glad to hear it, because I don't know, there wasn't too much about this, and I kind of had to figure a lot of it out on my own. So we're going to make a new variable. Let's go ahead and call it gtimer for now. And then we want this to execute when the difference between the current time and the time we have stored up here is over a certain value. So let's go ahead and create a, whoops, I'm making that too far up, private static int of gtimer. And let's go ahead and add, let's say 1,000 here, and continue this function. So basically this will get the latest time, and this is a int that just counts up from 0. So as more ticks go on, it handles how many ticks it's seen. And so every tick, if the difference between the last time we stored this value and the current time is greater than 1,000, we'll run this code. So in here we actually need to assign this to get game timer right here. So and then now this code will work fine. So in here we can actually go ahead and call our loop function if we wanted to. And also something else we'll need to do here is that whenever you're playing FiveM, you might notice if there's a dead body, EMS always seems to come. If there's a fire, fire always seems to come. Well, these are called dispatch services. You can also do the same with police. So one thing we need to actually disable for this, because we don't want EMS coming and meddling with our bodies that we're trying to do all of our code with, we want to actually disable EMS. So there's a good API function for this. It's called enable dispatch service, and it takes an int of dispatch service. So if we go take a look at the native documentation, we can see all of the different kinds of dispatches there are here. So we're interested in EMS right now. So right here you can see 5, you can see SWAT is 4, fire department's is 3, and then like gangs are 11, police boats, army vehicle, biker backup. You can really kind of change whatever you want and disable whatever you want. So anyways, we're interested in 5, which was EMS. And then the second parameter is true or false, and we're going to set it to false. Now, if you only call this, like, say, as soon as your script executes, like, let's say up here in your main, this actually won't work. You have to call this on a regular basis for the game to disable it. So some people call this every tick, but I found that even running it inside this around every 1,000 ticks method seems to actually work just fine. So we can go ahead and save main. We're done with that for now. If we come back to Coroner, we can actually start filling out some of the code for the loop function. So within loop, we can go ahead and start writing our code. So the first thing we want to do is pick up and determine whether or not our event is even spawned. Because if our event's not spawned, we don't really want to be doing any extra calculations or any extra logic during the tick loop, because every little bit of extra code you're running on a tick, it's going to just slow everything else down. And if you're doing too much stuff, then you're just going to slowly get resource warnings and stuff from just doing too much. So within if event spawn, so this will only run once our event is actually spawned. One thing we're going to need probably throughout this whole thing is we're going to need to know who our player is. So we'll do game.player.character. And in here, let's go ahead and do the first kind of quote-unquote step that we have to do. We have to handle once the van pulls up to the location and they need to get out and, I guess, like, let's say go up to the player or something like that. So what we're going to go ahead is we're going to need a new flag for this. So let's go ahead and create a new private static bool of event on scene. And we're going to use this here. And we only want this to run if they are not on the scene yet. And then we want to see how far away from the target location they are. So we're going to use api.getDistance between chords. And in here we'll pass the van coordinates. cvan entity dot position dot y, cvan entity dot position dot z, and then we want to pass the location where they're going to be driving to. So we actually aren't storing that in our class. So let's come down here and we see we're just storing it in a local variable here. So let's actually take this. We can actually take that semicolon 2. Go ahead and close out of this. Get rid of this line. And then let's come back up here and let's add a private static vector3 of target location. And we're going to use this to determine if they're there or not. And then target location.y, and then target location.z. And then the last parameter is useZ, and we'll pass true to that. And then what get distance between chords returns is a float of the distance. So we want to know if they are less than 10 meters away from their destination, basically. So once they are actually on scene, let's go ahead and set event on scene to true. So that way this code will only execute once, or else they'll be constantly on scene probably, because we're going to do them getting out of the vehicle, stuff like that. So once they are on scene, we can go ahead and show another notification like we did when they called them out. And we'll say the coroner is on scene. Please direct him to the body. And so now it'll show another little notification above the map about that. And now that this is done, we can go ahead and get them out of the vehicle. So let's do this, cvan ped1.task, and then in here you actually have the clear all and clear all immediately functions. Usually I like to do everything the object-oriented way, actually doing everything through the ped or doing stuff through the vehicle. Sometimes it doesn't always work the best, and sometimes it doesn't give you as many options, which we'll actually see in some of here, and I'll point those out to you as we go through them. The next thing we'll want to do is the set vehicle forward speed, and this wants the vehicle, so let's call the cvan entity.handle, and then it wants the speed of a float, and we'll pass 0. So the next thing we want to do is actually get them out of the vehicle. So we'll just do this one, leave vehicle, and this is asking for the ped, and then the actual vehicle that you want to get them out of, and then the flags, and 0 works here. Something else that you could do is do like cvan ped1.task.leave vehicle, and then this just wants a leave vehicle flag. And then if you look in here, there's a couple different options. leave the door open, none, warp out, bail out. It all works the same. And then in here, we'll just change this to ped2. And then now they'll both be out of the vehicle. So the next thing we can do, and something that I found always kind of helps these kind of scripted events seem less scripted, is kind of make it less robotic. So as it stands right now, they would just get out of the vehicle, not say anything, stuff like that. So one thing we can do is kind of give them kind of like a speech function. So what we'll do for that is we'll actually go ahead and create a function for this. So one thing we need to do is go ahead and create a common functions class for everything. So this will be where we kind of throw everything in that we're going to be using throughout Coroner, and that we'll even use on some different ones. So up in client, let's right click and do add class. And we'll call it common functions.cs. And in here you can start to put all of the other functions that we had. You don't want summon, but like for example load model, we need to go ahead and grab out of there. And then that's about the only other one in there. So let's come back to common functions, paste this in here, then we'll have to add this import for API. We'll show potential fixes, doing this, and then this one needs system diagnostic, and then we need base script, so not a problem. Add that there, and then go ahead and add this here. And then we should be all good with that. You can get rid of all these extra ones if you need. Alright, so there we go. So we got this all cleaned up. And here's all the imports you would need for that to get it going. So the next thing we're going to do is create some new functions for this. So we're going to need to do all kinds of different stuff with this new code. So one of the things we'll need is to actually like display the message that we want to. So there's a native function for this, and it's most of the time when you have to do, like if you notice when you're setting like blip names, it's a whole series of commands. So one thing we could do is also create a function to create blips too. But for now, what we'll go ahead and do is create a public static void of display message. And for our parameters, we want a string of message and then an int of time, because we can actually tell the UI to only display this message for a certain amount of time. So when we're in here, the first thing we want to do is go ahead and call this function clear prints, and this will clear out any other like active one that we have. API.set text entry, and then you have to do the _2 to string. Pretty weird function, but some of the natives, their functions are kind of weird like that one, but it's not too bad. Add text component string, and then you want to actually set this to the message variable. And then the last one we need to call is draw subtitle timed, and this one we can pass it the time and then to whether or not to display it immediately. So now that this is done, this function is actually good. We can go ahead and save this, and let's go back to Coroner. And in here, let's go ahead and add a communication comment, because they're going to kind of want to talk to each other. So once we have this, we want to go ahead and display some messages. So you could always just hard code a message, like let's say common functions.display message, hey, you know, in 2500, that would be milliseconds, so 2.5 seconds is how you have to time everything with the subtitles. So yeah, but now every time you would call the Coroner, he would always say just hey. So one thing that kind of helps, like I said earlier, with making scripted events seem less scripted is to introduce some randomness and communication. So instead of hard coding a string here, we can actually get him to pick from a series of strings if we wanted. So to do that, let's come up here, and below our random variable there, let's go ahead and create some new lists. So the first thing that we'll need is one for each pedestrian, so ped1 and ped2. Then we'll need a message for like after they're done and while they're actually doing stuff. So let's go ahead and create a public static of a list of string, because it's going to be a we'll probably need to import this. Yep, show potential fixes, and then using the generic from collections, and then we'll call this ped1 messages, or yeah, we can call it that, it's fine. And then we'll do a new list of string, and then open a curly brace, and then don't forget your semicolon. And then in here you can have a comma delimited list of strings of the messages that you would want him to say. So you could go ahead and say like, hey has one, and then like, oh man is another one. Now the only thing is that this would just say, oh man, like at the bottom of your screen down here. So it wouldn't be too clear. So one thing you can do is you can add color to the text. And so for example, ped1 we know is going to be the coroner himself. So that's just the way we've always coded it. So what we can do is we can insert his name here, and then it would say, you know, of course, coroner, hey. Now we can also color the text, which we have the ability from all of the like CitizenFX stuff. So what you do is you can pass it a squiggly line, I guess a tilde, and B tilde, and this would color it blue, and then tilde S tilde would make it back to default or white, I believe. So in here you can then copy this and paste it for your other one, and then you would obviously know who said that line. Otherwise it would just say hey or oh man or something like that. So you can make these say whatever you want, you know, like oh man, you know, it's a bad one, and then I should have made that one this one. And then this one, you know, like why can't we get an easy one, you know, something generic about hating their jobs. So we'll make another public static list of a string for ped2 messages, and new list string. Go ahead and do that and terminate everything. So in here this will be our assistant. So we can do B again for blue, and we'll call him the assistant, and then we can start to say our messages here. So you know, for example, did you grab any body bags? So then maybe another one, B assistant in, or not in S. I think N's actually a new line. That would actually be a terrible thing to do. And then I'll grab my clipboard, I guess. So once that's done, we need two more. So a public static list string of, we'll say, progress messages, and then this one can be let's say the coroner. I keep wanting to put in, and yeah, this can be while they're in the middle of, you know, doing the scene. So I don't know. I should have brought a bigger body bag. B, and then we'll do S, and then I don't know. That's a lot of holes. Maybe they got shot. I don't know. Public static, and then we'll do another string, and then we want to do like a leave message. So leave messages. So new list string, and this is the last one. B, this will be the assistant. Oops. And then yeah, I want to stop by the bar. And then our last one, just so we can stop with all the typing, we'll make assistant, and yeah, we'll say that. Sure. I think I'm gonna barf. So now that we have all these messages defined, luckily all the typing's over with. So now back down here, we can go ahead and display a message. So since we have multiple ones in here, we can actually use our random option available again. So to do that, to pick something from like a random list that we want them to actually say, is we'll go ahead and reference whatever the list is. So what was it, like ped1 messages, and then when you will open up for an index, And basically this will allow us to pick, like we could put 0 or 1, and we could pick message 1 or 2. But like I said, we want it to be random. So we can actually use random.next again, like we did for the license plate. So we'll call random.next. And then we don't want to assume how many ones in there, and you don't want to have to count every single time. Like, oh, I've got 3 messages, or oh, I forgot to increase it because I've got 5. You can just count how many are actually in that array. So, or that list, I guess I should say, is the correct way. So you can do ped1 messages and just do .count. And this will actually pass the count to random.next and give you a random number between 0 and the max number that you have in this list. So for all of these, it would be 0 or 1. But still, it would change between calls. So anyways, this will display for 2500 seconds. So one thing we can do is go ahead and delay this for 2500 seconds. And then, did we not make this async? Yeah, we sure did. So we'll go ahead and make that async, and then common functions dot display message. And then I'm just going to copy this because it's basically the same. And then we'll just change this to ped2 messages, change this to ped2 messages dot count. And then now these guys will actually say something. It'll wait 2500 seconds, and then it's going to show a different message. So it's just something to kind of like break up the monotony of the scripted event. It makes it kind of seem less scripted, or whatever you want to say. Anyways, so now that they're actually out of the vehicle, one thing we need them to do is actually come to us. So you can do this a couple different ways. I prefer to always use the API way. You get a little more control over what they exactly do. So first it wants the entity, cvan ped1.handle, and then it wants the target. So that's going to be us, so the player.handle. Then it wants the duration. So this is how long they will run for. If you set 1, they won't run for very long. If you set 2, they'll run a little longer. You know, of course, it's just a second timeout, basically. And then for duration, you can always just put -1 like I did here, and they will just run for as long as they need till they get there. The next one is the distance. So this is how far away from the entity they'll get before they stop. So we'll set this to 5 as a float. That usually works pretty well. Speed we'll set to 3f. That's about a running speed, basically. And then P5 is kind of confusing, so let's go take a look at it on the native documentation. So task, go to entity, and you can see basically the code always seems to use this value here. So let's go ahead and copy that, and we'll paste this here. And then the last one was a what was it, 0. So there we go. And we can go ahead and end that line there. And oops, I put E. That should be cvan ped1. And then we'll need to copy this for the second pedestrian as well. And you don't have to change anything else. And that's all good. So now these guys will run up to us and run up to our player. So the next thing we want to do is maybe get the assistant to pull out his clipboard, maybe start writing some notes, you know, ask us what happened, that kind of stuff. So what we'll do is we're going to insert a wait, and we're going to be checking the distance of the assistant from our player. So to do that, we're going to once again use get distance between chords, and we're going to want to pass this the cvan ped2.position.x. And I'm just going to copy this a few times and change this to the XZ, or the X, Y, and Z coordinate, just so I don't have to type it all out. Then we need to put in our player.position, and .y and .z, and then a true on the end for use the Z coordinate. And then we want to know whenever they are less than 5, let's say, meters away from us. So, I'm sorry, while they are greater than 5 meters apart from us. I confused myself there. So we'll call debug.writeLine, and just so that we know what's going on, we'll say the assistant is pathfinding to the player. and then we will await base script dot delay 500, and this will just every half a second just check and see whether or not they're up to us yet. You can always just increase this to like 250 or whatever you want. It really doesn't matter, but 500 works fine. And then once they are actually up to us, we want them to pull out their clipboard. So GTA uses what's called scenarios for stuff like that. It's similar to how you can make a player smoke or use the phone or drink something. They're all just scenarios. So I'll have it linked in the description, but somebody actually extracted all the list of different scenarios there are. And you can see there's all different kinds of ones. But down here you'll actually see there's some medic ones. And the one that we want to use is right here, code human medic time of death. And this is the one where he's standing with his clipboard writing some notes. So let's go ahead and go back to here. And right below our while statement, but not inside. So once he's actually up to our location, we'll go ahead and call api.taskStartScenario. And then we want to do the at position one, not the other one. So this way we can specify the exact heading and coordinates that the pedestrian's doing the scenario at. So the first one it wants is the pedestrian handle. So c vanped2 dot handle, and then it wants to know the scenario name. So that would be what we just got from the GTA form. Then the next thing it wants to know is the position. So for this one, we'll just call the guy's current position. And I'm just going to copy and paste this, change it back to X, Y, and Z. And then the next thing that it wants to know is how long you want him to do the scenario. So once again, you can just pass that -1, and it's perfectly fine. Then the last two is if it's a sitting scenario and if you want them to teleport. So for this, you can just pass false and false for those. And then you can go ahead and close out that function there. So one thing we forgot to add on to here is we forgot one of the parameters. So we forgot the heading is what it looks like. So cvanped2 dot heading. There we go, and all is well in the world. So let's go ahead and close. Oh, nope, don't do that. And go ahead and end that. So this is done. So now once they are actually up to us, they will run up to us. He'll pull out his clipboard, and then that's it. So let's go ahead and take a look at what this looks like now. So one thing before we actually do go into the game is we need to correct this. So one thing I forgot to do is, since we moved the load model to the common functions file, is we need to go ahead and change this to commonfunctions.loadModel. And we have to do that 3 times, one for the van and then once for each pedestrian. And once this is done, it will actually build successfully if you guys were following along. I kind of forgot to change that, so my apologies about that. Alright, so we're in game, and I've got the plugin loaded. So we can go ahead and type /coroner and go ahead and get them to come down this way. And let's see kind of what happens. So I'm going to press F8 and open up the console. And we'll be able to kind of see as things go on what happens. So we can see the assistant's pathfinding. He's pulling out his notebook. And yeah, everything seems to be working perfect, actually. This guy, we haven't given him anything to do, because right now he should be maybe going to the bodies that are around and stuff like that. But we don't have any of that code in yet. But everything seems to be working perfect. They get out, they come, they say hi to us. So that's all good. But that's where we can go ahead and end this episode here. It's long enough. I don't want this to be an 1.5-hour episode or anything. So hopefully you guys have enjoyed. Look out for next episode where we actually implement some of the logic to make the coroner really work. And it'll be kind of a more fun episode. So hopefully you guys have enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.